Francis, known as the Pope of the People for his humility, his charisma, his legacy to be remembered across the world. And hours ago in Rome, ABC News joined the funeral of the Holy Father, and there is a lot of Catholic symbolism and tradition to dissect and take note of. So to better understand it all this morning, we are grateful to be joined by Duke's Divinity School professor, Peter Casarella. Good morning, Peter. Thank you so much for being with us.
Good morning, Sydney. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really appreciate you being here. You know, we've seen Catholic cardinals and bishops and priests, among other world leaders, in attendance this morning leading up to the funeral mass. The Pope's coffin taken out of the basilica into the public square for the funeral. Can you help us better understand some of the history behind that tradition in particular?
Absolutely. Pope Francis simplified the whole ceremony because he's the people's Pope and he wanted to be there with the people. The Pope being buried in St. Peter's goes back to ancient tradition, first in the catacombs, and Leo the Great was the first one buried in St. Peter's. But of course, Pope Francis made the dramatic decision not to be buried in St. Peter's. The funeral was held in St. Peter's Basilica according to ancient tradition and the own order of the funeral that he confirmed. But then he asked to be buried in the Church of Santa Maria Maggiore, St. Mary Major, which is another Roman basilica.
And you mentioned this before when we were speaking, but someone from the Duke Divinity School is actually there this morning in Rome. Can you tell me more about that?
That's correct. The Dean of Duke Divinity School, Edgardo Colon Emerick, who is a co-presider of the Methodist Catholic Dialogue, was one of the 3 delegates from the World Methodist Council and was there as an invited participant in the funeral.
Wow. You know, after the Mass, everyone walked through the Italian capital city toward the Pope's burial place, as you mentioned, the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore. So what's the story behind that particular church as well, and why did Pope Francis choose that church?
That's an excellent question. I mean, not all popes have been buried in St. Peter's. St. Leo the Great at the beginning of the 20th century was in St. John Lateran. Pope Francis had a special devotion to St. Mary Major. He's been there over 100 times. He went there on the first day of his pontificate. He went there after he came out of the hospital. There's a Byzantine icon called Salus Populi Romani, to the health and welfare of the Roman people. And I understand that he's going to be buried right next to this icon. So it's a pilgrimage site near the major train station in Rome, Stazione Termini. It's a more mixed, socioeconomically neighborhood. But the main reason is that this is like Our Lady of Guadalupe of Rome, or for Argentines, Our Lady of Lujan of Rome. He's deeply devoted to Mary, Mother of God. He's prayed there many times, and he wanted to be close to the people who are praying to Mary in Rome and around the world.
And, you know, thank you so much for being here with us this morning. We have so much more to talk to you about, and we're really glad that you were able to kind of break down some of the tradition and the history behind all of this. And we know that there's a lot of questions about what's next for the church, so we will certainly check back in with you soon. We'll see you back here around 9:30, so in just a couple hours. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Joel, back over.